Ever since the British colonized Australia, it seems the country has been at war with nature, especially the animals within it. See, European settlers brought new species from Europe like rabbits, deer, and cats, all of which have thrived in a new environment without their natural predators. The Australian colonists' decision to bring non-native animals resulted in unintended consequences, sparking an environmental disaster that still plays out today. While it might seem harmless to bring some deer for hunting or cats for company, Australia has a unique ecosystem that is especially vulnerable to invasive species. The reason is simple. Australia is an island geographically separate from other continents and even other islands. While it's close to New Guinea, which is around 150 kilometers away from mainland Australia, other countries are much further away. The distance from Auckland to Sydney, just about the closest point between Australia and New Zealand, is still over 2,100 kilometers away. For the past 180 million years, Australia's wildlife has been effectively sealed off from the outside world, free to evolve in a different direction. See, 600 million years ago, Australia was part of a megacontinent called Gondwana. What's now Africa, Antarctica, South America, the Indian and Arabian subcontinents, as well as Madagascar. We're all part of Gondwana and thus connected to Australia. All these places now have a vast variety of different beautiful languages that you can learn to speak very quickly by using Speakly, the sponsor of this video. See, Speakly isn't just a simple language learning app. It's based on real science and research, which helps you learn languages 5 times faster compared to what you're accustomed to, which means getting from 0 to solid speaking skills in around 3 to 4 months. This requires only 30 minutes of daily learning practice, and my favorite part is that Speakly offers everything you need to learn a language, as you'll have speaking, writing, and listening comprehension exercises, and even music recommendations in the language that you're learning. This means that your studies never get boring and monotonous, because there's so much to do and experience. Speakly also happens to be the only language learning application that actually lets you choose how you want to study new vocabulary, as it offers a writing focus, multiple choice options, or a combination of these both options for even more variety in your studies. Speakly is available on both web and mobile, and if you click the link below, you'll get 7 days free as well as a 60% discount if you join the annual subscription. So start learning some cool new languages today by clicking that link. Thank you again to Speakly for sponsoring this video. Alright, so during this time, marsupials or mammals that raise their young in a pouch instead of a womb became widespread in Gondwana. Common, quote, placental mammals only overtook marsupials in Gondwana after Australia broke off from it 180 million years ago. This isolation let marsupials proliferate in Australia, evolving into the creatures we know and love today, like kangaroos, koalas, and echidnas. But this divergent evolution has a major downside. Australia's native wildlife didn't develop defenses against invasive predators. The result is that cats today represent a threat to over 50 vulnerable native species, with feral cats killing over 2 million animals a year. Imported diseases are also wreaking havoc on native flora and fauna. Tasmanian devils, the large carnivorous marsupials you might know from Looney Tunes cartoons, have lost 80% of their population over the past 25 years due to an infectious facial tumor. At the same time, koala populations are threatened by another disease you might not expect: chlamydia. The sexually transmitted disease, common in humans, has somehow made its way to koalas and can blind them and even turn them sterile. Recently, the outlook for koalas became worse as they were added to the endangered species list in several parts of the country. So, what can Australia actually do to protect its unique wildlife against the threats of invasive species and diseases? Well, the country has tried just about everything. You see, in the early 1900s, it built fences to keep rabbits from expanding into new territory. In the 1930s, the Australian government fought a literal war against emus and lost. As I told you in a previous video, these close relatives to cassowaries were hilariously effective at evading gunshots and were impossible to conquer. As agriculture expanded, Australia built fences to keep emus away from wheat fields. But today, some see fences as a relic of colonial attitudes towards nature. A team of researchers in Australia studied plans to expand Western Australia's state barrier fence and concluded that barrier fencing is likely ineffective and has many negative effects on the ecosystem. system. The fence blocks animals from migrating to new habitats and prevents native predators like dingoes from managing native herbivore populations and invasive species like red foxes and feral cats. Another strategy Australia tried, which of course horribly backfired, was importing another species to control invasive pests, the cane toad, which was imported from Hawaii in the 1930s to help with sugarcane pests. You can probably see where this is going. But the cane toads ended up spreading beyond the original sugarcane plantations in northeast Queensland, and they continued to cross into new territory, arriving in Western Australia in 2009. Animals like the adorable quail were not prepared for the toads, which are toxic to many animals if eaten. Although they're not the main cause of the declining quail populations, it certainly doesn't help that cane toads are arriving in new territory every day. It seems the unintended consequences of invasive species arriving in Australia are never ending. Since the 1970s, another species has been causing serious damage to Australia's agriculture industry: mice. After a year of drought, parts of Australia finally got rain and grew a record amount of grain. The grain naturally attracted mice, which began to multiply rapidly. The result was a massive mice infestation in New South Wales, which lies in Australia's eastern wheat belt. See, one mouse can reproduce after just 6 weeks. It's pregnant for 3 weeks and then gives birth to as many as 10 mice at once. That means after a few months you basically have a mouse plague. It's bad enough that they eat crops and spread disease, but they also chew through everything in sight, including furniture and anything with wires. The smell of their urine ruins whatever hay they don't eat, so farmers can't sell it anymore. Poison is the only effective way to get rid of them, but the thousands of dead mouse bodies pile up in homes and produce an awful smell. Still, poison can't kill them all, and even if farmers burn their fields to reduce food for mice, their best hope is for a cold winter to kill them off, or for the population to get so big that mice start killing each other off. So I apologize if I just made your skin crawl, but this is the kind of ecological disaster Australian farmers are dealing with on a regular basis. Mice populations finally came back under control this year in New South Wales after a flooding as well as massive campaigns to bait mice with poison. Experts now warn farmers to stay vigilant for signs the tiny creatures begin multiplying again. Unfortunately, the problem has arisen in other areas, as a mild winter and wet summer caused a mice outbreak in June 2022 in the state of Queensland. As a country regularly facing this kind of infestation, Australia has even resorted to biological warfare to try and get this under control. It released a virus to kill rabbits in the 1950s and another one in 2017. While the virus was initially effective at killing rabbits, their population rebounded after they developed an immunity to it. Today, it seems Australia has finally abandoned its war on animals and is attempting a new policy. After centuries of importing foreign animals, plants and diseases, the land down under is finally taking the opposite approach. Australia has adopted strict biosecurity laws that ban importing exotic pets or insects and live plants. Even pets like cats or dogs that are allowed in the country have to be declared, and pets from certain countries must undergo a 10-day quarantine. Former celebrity couple Johnny Depp and Amber Heard learned this the hard way when Amber was caught sneaking their dogs into the country in 2015. The couple made a seemingly forced apology video which was posted to YouTube by the Australian Department of Agriculture. And that's all I'll say about that toxic relationship, but assuming you're not a celebrity, you probably won't get away with the same crime without jail time. The country now has taken things a step further by declaring its goal of no more extinct species ever. This ambitious plan includes 110 threatened species as a priority in 20 habitats. Still, James Watson, a professor and conservation expert, told the New York Times that Australia has over 1,700 threatened species and the expected $146 million in funding needs to be about 6 times larger to save every threatened species. This new commitment to protecting the country's wildlife comes as the environmental situation is worsening. In the most recent State of the Environment report, the Australian government highlighted the high cost of invasive species, with invasive plants alone costing $3 billion per year. European blackberries are one example of invasive plants which, while delicious, can trap animals and even become a fire hazard. And if you've been following the news over the past few years, you'll know Australia has been dealing with serious wildfires. In the 2019 to 2020 wildfires alone, an estimated 60,000 koalas were affected, with many dying. These fires were even visible from space and burned over 5.8 million hectares of land. To put that into perspective, that's about the size of the entire country of Croatia. The fires were so bad they raised global temperatures by 0.7 degrees Celsius for 4 months and even damaged the ozone layer. While Australia naturally has bushfires, 2019 to 2020 was a record year. Climate change caused by human activity is making weather more extreme around the world, but it's also causing the bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef off the northeastern coast of Australia. The reef stretches over 2,300 kilometers down Australia's coast, but has already lost half of its coral since 1995. Temperature changes cause the coral, which is a living creature, to expel the algae that lives inside it and give it its color. This causes the coral to bleach white and makes them vulnerable to disease and starvation. Entire ecosystems rely on the reef for shelter, so bleaching can endanger the 1,500 species of fish and other animals that live in the Great Barrier Reef. So yeah, Australia has an incredibly diverse and unique environment, but poor choices since colonization have caused completely horrendous consequences. Climate change is forcing the Australian government to change its attitude from fighting against nature to fighting to protect it. Let's hope the Australian government chooses effective policies and provides enough funding to protect the quolls, koalas, kangaroos, and all the other animals that we of course all love. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.